In today's video I'm going to show you how to do a standing double crochet, and I'm going to show you how to do that with granny squares. But anywhere where you're starting a round or a row with a double crochet, you can always use a standing double instead of a chain. So I'm going to show you how it works with granny squares, but you can use it in lots of different ways as well. So I just want to show you the difference between a standing double and how it looks when you start with a chain. So here, for example, if I just pull my work a little bit apart, so sorry, got the wrong one. So this one, if I just pull my work apart, you can see that this is a chain. So here I started with 3 chains, as I normally would, instead of my double crochet. And if I look carefully at my work, I can actually see the difference between these groups where I started with a chain and these groups where I didn't start with a chain because I was just continuing my work. So you will always be able to see the chains. How much you can see them depends on your yarn. So you might say, for example, well, when I look at this I can't really see the chains, and that's really because my yarn is a little bit chunky, it's a little bit fluffy, so it's a little bit less obvious. Excuse me. But you will always be able to see the chains, so that's why people prefer to do a standing double crochet. So this then is with a standing double crochet, and what you can see, so these are my standing doubles here. This last stitch of the group is my standing double, and because of the way it works, it looks very similar to a regular double crochet. And when you're looking at your work, just looking at it from a distance, you really can't tell the difference. So it's just a neater way of starting. So I'm going to show you how that works. If you are starting your round with a different colour, then it's slightly different. So I will show you how that works as well. There's a quick link in the description, so if you want to just fast forward because you're starting with a different colour, then you can just click on that link. So here I've just got my first round of my granny square, and I'm going to start the next round with my standing crochet. Now when I do granny squares, I normally start with 1 and then a corner and then my 3 double crochets. So I start with kind of half a corner. So here I'm going to slip stitch just into that corner so that I've got a little space to put my stitch. And now this is how we do the standing double. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull my hook out so that I've got a nice long loop here. The length of your loop here, you want it to be about the height of your double crochet. So I'm just going to pull it out a little bit more so that it's a bit easier for you to see. So what you need to do is you need to put your finger very firmly on that loop because you don't want it to move around in the next bit. If you don't have it if you don't have your finger on the loop, then when you move the hook around, you're just gonna lose the loop. So keep your finger firmly on the loop. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to bend my hook around towards me like this, so that I wrap the yarn over my hook. And that's why I have to keep hold of it, because if I didn't keep hold of that loop, then I would just end up with a twist. Okay, so just to show you again, so keeping your finger firmly on that loop, twist your hook around, so towards me and around, so that I've got that loop also on my hook. Now, because that was a loop, there are actually 2 strands there. If I just pull them apart, you can see. So there are 2 strands because it was like a loop. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to treat this that's on my hook now as though this was my 3 loops. So if I was doing a normal double crochet, I would yarn over until I have 3 loops on the hook, and then I would take them off in 2s. So I'm going to yarn over and go through the 2 loops like this, and bring my hook up again, and then yarn over and through the 2 loops on my hook. And that is my standing double crochet. It looks a little bit gappy at the top because where I was showing you, I let go of my hook a little bit so that I could show you a bit more easily. But because of the way that this wraps and the way you go through 2 and 2, this looks much neater than a chain. So then if I'm just going to finish off my round, so I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to do my 3 into that corner, just so that I can show you where I am in the granny square. So normally I would start with my standing double and then 2 chains and then work into my corner and then work all the way around, and then when I get back to this part I would do 2 regular doubles in there. And then when I'm joining to my standing double, sometimes it's a little bit gappy on the top, so you just need to be sure that you get your hook underneath these 2 bits when you're joining. Okay, so that's a standing double when your yarn is attached, when you're just continuing with the same colour. So what if you were starting a new colour? So here's my first round of my granny square. Let's just get my new colour. So I've got a slightly different colour. So what I'm going to do is, if I'm going to start with a standing double with a new colour, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook. And I'm going to pretend that that's the loop that's normally attached to my crochet. So when you're crocheting, you've always got one loop on your hook, and then you start whatever stitch you're doing next with the next action. So if I was doing a double crochet, my next action would be to yarn over. So I'm keeping hold of my tail here so that my slip knot doesn't move around. But what I need to do now is to really hold these 2 loops with my finger for the next part, because I don't want them to move around at all. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into my corner and make my stitch. So keeping hold of these 2 loops on my hook, my hook goes into the corner, I yarn over and bring it through, and now I've got my 3 loops on the hook. Again, I have to keep hold of them because otherwise they're going to move around. So yarn over again and through 2, and yarn over and through 2. And that is my standing double with a new colour. So then, as I did before, normally I would then chain in my corner and do my first cluster in the corner, just like that. Let me just show you. Okay, so then I would go around it again and I would come back to here and I would finish with 2 double crochets in that same space. And here, because I started with this slip knot, you might see that there's a little gap there, but basically that's where you're going to be joining into there. And that's how it works if you start with a different colour. So that's the standing double crochet.